The automatic glass door sighed open with the low hum of the evening crowd. Shoppers drifted in and out of the massive department store, their bags brushing against each other like sails in a crowded harbor. To them, this was just another ordinary day. But to Malik Donovan, it was a day of quiet reckoning. He wore a plain hoodie, jeans, and sneakers, blending into the tide of customers who pushed carts and carried baskets. No one gave him a second glance, and that was exactly what he wanted. Because tonight, he wasn't Malik Donovan, the CEO of Donovan Retail Group, the man whose name appeared in financial magazines or whose empire stretched across 27 states. Tonight, he was just another man walking into his own store undercover. For months, Malik had heard whispers. Reports from a few trusted sources in the corporate office suggested there was rot beneath the polished surface of his chain. Employees overworked, underpaid, disrespected. Middle managers cutting corners and treating staff like disposable tools. Customer complaints that somehow never reached headquarters. He could have ordered an audit, sent investigators, or fired managers outright. But Malik was a man who believed in seeing the truth with his own eyes. So he had come without announcement, without entourage, without so much as a corporate badge. He wanted to walk the floors, feel the pulse, and hear the truth from the ground level. It didn't take long. The music overhead was faint, some mindless pop tune, but beneath it came the sound of a muffled sob. Malik's steps slowed as he moved toward the janitorial corridor in the back, near the employee break room. The fluorescent lights flickered weakly overhead. He stopped when he saw her. A young black woman in a faded blue janitor's uniform knelt beside her mop bucket, her shoulders trembling. She tried to cover her face with her sleeve, but it was no use. Tears streamed freely. Malik's chest tightened. Something about her sorrow seemed raw, unguarded, like pain that had been swallowed too long, only to burst out in private. He cleared his throat gently. "You are right, miss?" The woman startled, looking up, her eyes red and swollen. For a second, shame flickered across her face, as though she feared she'd be punished just for being seen crying. I'm fine," she whispered, her voice cracking. "Just allergies." But Malik had lived long enough, fought his way through enough corporate lies and smooth-talking executives to recognize when someone was lying to protect themselves. This wasn't allergies. This was something far worse. He crouched down so he wasn't towering over her. "I don't think so. Talk to me. I'm not here to cause trouble." She hesitated, torn between silence and desperation. Finally, her lips quivered, and she said the words like they burned to leave her throat. "They called me trash." Malik blinked. "Who?" "My manager, and some of the others. They said I should be grateful I even have a job cleaning floors, that people like me don't belong anywhere near the customers." Her hands balled into fists. "Said I was too dumb to do anything else." Malik felt heat rising under his skin, but he kept his face composed. "What's your name?" "Danielle," she whispered. "How long have you worked here?" 2 years, night shifts, sometimes doubles. "And this treatment, how long has it been going on?" Danielle's laugh was bitter, hollow. "Since the day I started. They cut my hours whenever I ask for help. They make me clean the bathrooms without gloves sometimes. And when I spoke up last week about my paycheck being short, the manager told me if I didn't like it, I could go scrub toilets somewhere else." Her shoulders slumped. The fight drained from her. "I need this job. My son, he's only 6. I can't risk losing it, so I take it. I swallow it all. But tonight, I just—" Her voice broke again, and she buried her face in her sleeve.
Malik felt his jaw tighten until his teeth ached. He had built this company with the vision of lifting people up, of giving working-class families steady jobs and dignity. He had fought through racism, through bankers who sneered at his proposals, through competitors who doubted a black man could run an empire. He had promised himself his stores would never mirror the cruelty he had faced on his climb. And now here, in the shadow of his own creation, one of his employees was being treated like garbage. The irony cut him deep. "Danielle, listen to me. None of this is your fault. You deserve better, much better." She shook her head, clearly thinking he was just another sympathetic customer. "Thanks, but saying it doesn't change anything. They've got the power. I'm just the janitor." Malik rose to his feet slowly, the weight of decisions settling over him. He could reveal himself right there. He could tell her she wasn't just a janitor, she was his employee, under his protection. He could storm upstairs, fire the manager, and drag the truth into the light. But no, that would be too easy, too quick. Revenge wasn't just about cutting the snake's head off. It was about making sure the whole nest was exposed.
Malik wanted to see how deep the rot went. He wanted every person who thought they could exploit the vulnerable to feel the walls close in on them.
And most of all, he wanted Danielle to see what justice looked like when the tables finally turned. "Danielle," he said firmly, "do you trust me?" She looked up, confused. "I don't even know you." "You will," he said. "But for now, just keep doing your job. Don't let them see you break. And whatever happens in the next few days, know this, you are not alone." Her brows furrowed. "Who are you?" Malik's lips curved into the faintest smile. "Let's just say, I'm someone who doesn't like bullies." And with that, he turned and walked back into the glow of the store floor, where shelves of merchandise gleamed under bright lights. His pulse hammered with purpose. He wasn't just here to shop or inspect. He was here to bring judgment. The manager who mocked Danielle thought he owned power. The staff who sneered at her thought cruelty was a game. But they were about to learn a lesson no MBA, no board meeting, no memo could ever prepare them for. Because Malik Donovan had returned to his empire not as the CEO in a suit, but as the storm no one saw coming. The next morning, Malik returned to the store long before most shoppers had their morning coffee. He wore the same plain hoodie, blending in with the early wave of employees and delivery drivers. The automatic doors hissed open, and the hum of fluorescent lights buzzed like a warning. He made his way down the aisles, careful to observe without drawing attention. He noticed the small things first. The break room smelled of burnt coffee and despair, walls plastered with motivational quotes that felt more like threats when read under harsh lighting. A crooked poster barked, "If you're 5 minutes early, you're late." At one table sat a young cashier, no older than 20, scrolling nervously through her phone before hiding it as the door banged open. A man swaggered in, his tie loose, his grin crooked with arrogance. Malik recognized him immediately from Danielle's description. Todd Marwick, the store manager, mid-40s, balding, with the kind of face that always looked like it was smirking even when it wasn't. "Hey, you janitor!" he shouted loudly, making sure others could hear. "Don't forget to scrub those toilets extra good. Customers said last time they smelled like you're cooking." A few employees chuckled nervously. Danielle froze, her face blank, trained by survival not to react. But Malik felt the heat rise in his chest like molten steel. He clenched his fists, forcing himself not to intervene, not yet. He wasn't just after Todd's job. He wanted his arrogance exposed in front of everyone, undeniable and unforgettable.
Later that day, Malik sat quietly in the cafe section of the store, sipping bad coffee from a paper cup, pretending to scroll his phone. From his seat, he had the perfect vantage point to observe interactions. He watched Todd berate a stock boy for being too slow, though his hands were raw from moving boxes. He watched a supervisor laugh at a young mother on staff when she requested a different schedule to care for her child. Every word, every insult, every moment of humiliation, Malik stored like ammunition. But then came the moment that changed everything. Danielle emerged from the supply room carrying a bucket. Todd stepped into her path, blocking her way. "Hey," he said, his voice low enough that customers couldn't hear, but sharp enough for nearby staff to notice. "You still complaining about your paycheck being short?" Danielle straightened her shoulders, though her voice trembled. "I just want what I earned, that's all." Todd leaned closer, his grin venomous. "You'll get what I give you, and if you don't like it—" His eyes flicked toward the exit. "Door's right there. Plenty of folks would kill for this job." Malik set his cup down slowly. His heartbeat thundered in his ears. Danielle's hands shook, but she refused to look away. "That's not fair." Todd chuckled. "Fair? You clean toilets for a living. Life isn't fair. Learn your place." Something snapped in Malik. This wasn't just mismanagement. It was abuse. And he knew that if Danielle had the courage to speak, others must be suffering in silence.
That evening, Malik returned to his hotel suite and opened his laptop. He began drafting notes, a plan forming piece by piece. He didn't want Todd simply fired. He wanted him disgraced, stripped of every illusion of power. And he wanted every other manager in the chain to see what happened when you treated Malik Donovan's employees like dirt. But to do that, Malik needed more than his word. He needed evidence. He needed witnesses. He needed the truth, unfiltered. The following day, he approached Danielle during her break, when she sat outside behind the store eating a sandwich alone. "Danielle," he said softly, taking a seat on the curb nearby. She looked startled, then wary. "You again? Why do you keep talking to me?" "Because what you told me matters, and I think you're not the only one suffering here." She laughed bitterly. "You have no idea." "Then tell me." She hesitated, then sighed, as though the weight of silence had grown too heavy. "There's Maria on Register 5. She hasn't had a weekend off in 6 months, but if she says anything, they threaten to cut her hours. There's Jamal, the stock boy. They mock him for being slow, but he's got a back injury from this job, and they still make him lift heavy boxes. And me, they dock my pay for mistakes I didn't even make. But if I complain, Todd says I should be grateful I'm not unemployed." Malik nodded slowly, each word fueling the storm inside him. "Would you be willing to talk about this, on record?" Her eyes widened. "What do you mean?" "I mean, if you had the chance to tell the truth to someone who could change things, would you?" Danielle studied him, suspicion and hope warring in her gaze. "Are you some kind of journalist?" Malik smiled faintly. "Something like that." For the next few days, Malik worked quietly, gathering testimony. He spoke to Maria, who confirmed everything. He listened to Jamal, who winced every time he bent. He saw employees' eyes light with a mix of fear and relief when they realized someone was finally listening. He recorded details, dates, words spoken, patterns of abuse. Each story added weight to his arsenal. And all the while, Todd strutted through the store like a king, oblivious to the storm building just beyond his sight. But Malik wasn't satisfied with stories alone. He needed undeniable proof. So one evening, after hours, he slipped into the store wearing a janitor's badge he'd quietly borrowed. In the dim light, he checked the office where Todd kept his files. What he found turned his anger into fury. Falsified timesheets, pay stubs altered to cut hours, emails joking about keeping the janitor desperate so she won't leave, spreadsheets showing managers pocketing bonuses while employees' wages were siphoned off. Malik photographed everything. Each flash of his phone camera was another nail in Todd's coffin. By the time dawn approached, Malik had what he needed. Not just evidence for firing one corrupt manager, but a case that could shake the entire chain if it spread. But Malik wasn't satisfied with quiet termination or legal settlements. No, he wanted something more dramatic, something public. He wanted Todd to face the very people he had demeaned, stripped of his false power, as the truth came crashing down on him. The pieces were set. The trap was ready. And as Malik stood outside the store the next morning, watching employees file in, he whispered to himself, "It's time they learned who really owns this place." The storm was coming. The following Friday evening, the store buzzed with payday energy. Customers streamed in, eager for sales. Employees bustled between registers and aisles, masking exhaustion with forced smiles. Todd was in rare form, strutting through the store like a petty tyrant, barking orders just loud enough to humiliate, smirking at his own authority. Malik stood near the customer service desk, hoodie zip tie, cap pulled low. But this time, there was no hesitation. The storm he had promised himself and Danielle was about to break. At 6 o'clock sharp, Malik walked into the break room where employees gathered to snatch bites of dinner before the night rush. He stood in the doorway, silent. One by one, conversations faltered until all eyes turned to him. Todd sneered. "Who the hell are you? Customers aren't allowed back here." "No, customers aren't. But I'm not just a customer." Todd folded his arms, trying to intimidate. "Then what are you, huh? Some kind of inspector? You think you can barge in here and—" "I'm Malik Donovan," Malik said quietly, but carrying like thunder. The room froze. Every whisper, every breath seemed to vanish. Maria's sandwich slipped from her hand. Maria gasped. Jamal straightened, disbelief etched on his face. Even Todd's smirk faltered, though he recovered quickly with forced bravado.
"Yeah, right," Todd scoffed, forcing a laugh. "The CEO? In jeans and a hoodie? Don't make me laugh." Malik pulled his wallet from his pocket and laid his corporate ID card on the table. The laminated badge gleamed under the fluorescent light. Malik Donovan, Chief Executive Officer, Donovan Retail Group. Silence detonated like an explosion. Todd's face drained of color. The employees looked at one another, realization dawning. Danielle's hands trembled, her eyes wide. Malik's voice deepened, no longer hiding his fury. "For weeks I've walked these aisles. I've listened. I've seen. I've felt the way you treat people. And I've had enough." He reached into his bag and dropped a thick folder onto the table. Papers spilled out. Copies of falsified timesheets, altered pay stubs, emails, complaints buried. "This is what I found," Malik said, his voice hard. "Proof of stolen wages, proof of intimidation, proof of cruelty. You thought no one would notice. You thought people like Danielle had no voice. But you forgot one thing. This company is mine, and every single person who works here is under my protection." Todd sputtered, his arrogance crumbling. This is a mistake. I don't know where you got those, but enough." Malik's voice cut through the air like a blade. "You will not speak another word." Todd's jaw shut. Malik turned, scanning the faces of the employees. For too long, people like Todd have turned this place into a prison. They've stolen your hours, mocked your dignity, crushed your spirit. But not anymore. As of this moment, Todd Marwick is relieved of his duties, permanently. The room erupted in stunned gasps. Malik stepped closer to Todd, his gaze burning. "Security is on its way. You'll be escorted out, and then you'll face a full corporate investigation. I'll make sure the authorities see this file. I'll make sure every penny you stole is returned,
and I'll make sure you never hold a position of power over people again." Todd's bravado finally shattered. His shoulders sagged. Sweat trickled down his temple. "Please," he whispered, but Malik's eyes were ice. "No. You didn't show Danielle mercy when you called her trash. You didn't show Jamal mercy when you forced him to lift with an injured back. You didn't show Maria mercy when you worked her 6 months without a weekend. You showed none, and tonight you will receive none." Security arrived moments later, confusion giving way to shock as they realized who Malik was. With barely concealed satisfaction, they escorted Todd through the store. Customers turned, watching as the once arrogant manager sputtered and stammered, dragged past displays he once lorded over. The employees gathered near the registers, hushed murmurs spreading like wildfire. Danielle stood apart, tears streaming down her cheeks, not of sorrow this time, but of release, of vindication. Malik walked to her, lowering his voice. "You said you were just a janitor, that you had no power, but you were wrong. You had the courage to speak, and because of that, everything changed." She shook her head, overwhelmed. I don't know what to say." "Say this," Malik said softly. "You're not alone anymore. Not here, not ever." He turned then, raising his voice for all to hear. "From this day forward, this store and every store will change. Wages will be reviewed. Schedules will be fair. Complaints will go straight to headquarters, no more burying them under corrupt managers. And if anyone here dares to treat another human being like dirt again, they will answer to me directly." The room erupted in applause, tentative at first, then swelling into thunder. Employees who had bowed their heads in silence for months now stood taller, their eyes bright with hope. Danielle covered her mouth with her hand, sobbing openly, no longer ashamed. For the first time in years, she felt seen, valued, defended. Malik looked around, feeling the weight lift from his chest. This was why he had built Donovan Retail. Not for profit margins, not for magazine covers, but for this, to give people like Danielle a chance, to shield them from the cruelty he had known all his life. As he stepped back, his phone buzzed. It was his assistant at headquarters. "Sir," she said when he answered, "the board just got wind of what you did tonight. They're asking if this is going to be public." He glanced at the cheering employees, at Danielle's tear-streaked face, at Jamal's tentative smile, at Maria's grateful nod. "Yes," he said firmly. "It's going public. Every store, every paper, every channel. Let the world see what happens when you cross the people who built this company." And with that, Malik Donovan walked out into the night air, the roar of applause following him. Todd's reign was over. Danielle's tears had turned from despair to hope. Justice had been delivered, not in boardrooms or courtrooms, but right where it mattered most, on the ground, in the heart of the people. Malik looked up at the stars, a slow smile spreading across his face. The storm had passed, and in its wake, something stronger had arisen. Not just revenge, but renewal.